Before we begin, the name is placed on the top right side of the screen. In today's weather forecast, it is predicted that a typhoon will bring rain throughout the country. This would be bad news for someone like our protagonist, Lee Kang-hyun, who was planning to go camping. However, it doesn't matter to him anymore if it rains. He is enjoying his lunch under a sunny day. Soon, some of his friends join him, but they are not like normal people. One is a huge man who must be a hunter or a swordsman, a handsome-looking wolfman, and a quite hungry wolf girl. There's also a pretty elf lady. The weather does not bother Kang-hyun anymore because the place he is staying is not on Earth. One day, Kang-hyun visits the place where he is going to open a restaurant. He asks his fellow to make sure that there is no one here because last time they let their guard down and they got caught by paparazzi. But his friend says that no one would have followed them this far. Kang-hyun thinks that is right, so he gets out of the car and takes off his mask. Right now, wherever he goes, a bunch of people recognize him because he has become a celebrity chef. He graduated from CIA, one of the best cooking schools, won the Paris International Cooking Competition, and somehow got recognized, which resulted in getting love calls from different TV shows. Some people might think since he is a young, competent chef, he has a bright future ahead of him, but things are not as they seem. His fans often rest into hotel kitchens to take a picture of him, and his fellowship does not like it and gets mad at him for disturbing them. They often say if he is trying to look down on people like them who are serious about cooking, and he should have become a celebrity instead of a chef. He often receives hate comments on social media which breaks him down. He is tired of the attention he is getting. So he has decided to move to a remote place and he is happy about it, but he came here to rest. But his friend comments that the people who want to rest do not start businesses, but Kang-hyun corrects him that cooking is resting for him. As they unpack their luggage, they get tired and hungry, so Kang-hyun says that they have to go out because they cannot order something here. So, they order Korean black bean noodles. Kang-hyun is horrified by their look and taste. He cannot believe that they expect humans to eat this, but his friends say that it tastes okay to him. That reminds Kang-hyun that he cannot taste food. The doctor has told him that he has lost his sense of taste due to stress. The cause is psychological, so they cannot promise anything through surgery. The doctor suggests him that he should take care of his stress first. Although Kang-hyun is worried about the number of customers in this place, there are a lot of mountains and fields that are perfect for camping. So he takes his mini stove, the MacGyver knife, sunscreen, a compass, and a map. The driver asks him if he is going to the beach, but Kang-hyun tells him that he is going for camping in the mountains. The driver suggests that he must have brought a tube as well because they do not sell tubes there. Kang-hyun asks the driver to go to Yongpyong village. He has a place to stop by. It is his first time coming here after his grandfather's death. He goes to his grandfather's house and thinks he should clean it before he goes. Kang-hyun notices that the door of the storage room is open. He thinks it must be a thief, so he goes to check it out, but it turns out to be just a cat. Since no one is managing this place, even wild animals can come in. He enters the house in the dark and feels that something is off about it. It didn't look this big from the outside. Suddenly, he notices a deep abyss and something is blowing in it. He falls asleep and tumbles into the abyss. When he opens his eyes, he finds himself in an enchanted forest. Kang-hyun wonders where he is. He notices a little squirrel licking his hands, and to his surprise, the squirrel starts flying with its ears. As Kang-hyun tries to comprehend what's happening, a cute rabbit throws something at him. But as the rabbit comes out of the bush, it has the muscular body of a huge man and starts hopping. Kang-hyun freaks out and thinks he has to get out. This place is very dangerous. But even after wandering all day, he cannot find the exit and it's already dark. Kang-hyun thinks he's done, for there are no people, no phone, no reception here. He recalls the doctor telling him to go camping, not to get lost. But even in this situation, his stomach can't hold back and starts grumbling. Kang-hyun can't believe that even in this situation, he feels hungry. So he lights a fire. The problem is all he has is a bag of dried mushrooms, a little can of beer, and some salt and pepper. It was all in his stainless classic camping bag. Kang Hyun is relieved that at least he has these. He can't just eat this right away, so he decides to soak it first. He puts the mushrooms in the pan, pours some beer on them, and sautés them. Then he adjusts the taste with some pepper powder and salt, thinking that it's somehow edible now. Normally, he would have spit it out as soon as he put it in his mouth, but it's tasteless to him now. He throws the pan away and becomes depressed. Kang Hyun is almost crying at his situation. Suddenly, he notices few pairs of eyes glowing in the bushes. He gets scared, thinking they must belong to wolves, so he grabs his knife, ready to attack. But to his surprise, they vanish. Kang Hyun wonders if they disappeared. Then suddenly, he hears a bark. As he turns around, he sees a cute little puppy licking the pan. The puppy is wagging its tail. Kang Hyun wonders if it's a dog, then notices its ears and realizes it's a Siberian husky puppy. He's surprised and wonders where it came from. The puppy looks at Kang Hyun with anticipation and cuteness in its eyes, but Kang Hyun isn't bothered and tells the puppy to leave once it's done eating, as he doesn't particularly like dogs. He admits he doesn't understand why people find dogs cute, saying all this while blushing and patting the dog. Kang Hyun wonders if the puppy is wild because its fur is kind of stiff. As he considers its appearance, Kang Hyun realizes that it's a wolf. Kang Hyun wondered where the wolf's mother might be. Perhaps the wolf he saw earlier was his family. Kang Hyun fell to the ground, thinking that according to the dog rules, he would either get eaten or start to believe that he would die anyway. The little girl started pulling Kang Hyun by his shirt, making him think if she wanted to eat him now. But the little puppy dragged him to a glowing hole at the bottom of a tree trunk. Kang Hyun was surprised and thought that it was the same hole he fell through. He considered going back through it, but was confused because it was heading downwards, so it might be a portal to hell. As he went over to take a look, the baby wolf pushed him down the hole, and suddenly Kang Hyun was back in the village. He was happy that he survived. Kang Hyun thought that he didn't even get to thank the wolf. He believed that he wouldn't see him again but would never forget this debt. As he turned his head, he was surprised to see the little wolf standing beside him. So he brought him home, gave him a good shower, and decided to give him a name. Then he went to sleep with this cute little puppy. When Kang Hyun woke up the next morning, he was happy and relaxed because he had slept well. He couldn't remember the last time he had slept this well. He brought a bowl of dog food for the little wolf, thinking that he must like it because wolves are also a type of dog, but he didn't like it. Kang Hyun tried to give him cat food or rabbit food, but he didn't like any of them. Kang Hyun was lost and wondered if he should let this little dog starve. However, he thought that he might be able to take care of his food issues in the process of taking care of him. So he made a good breakfast for himself. Kang Hyun thought that he couldn't taste it, but he cooked really hard for this, hoping that there might be some food that he could still taste. The little wolf, whom Kang Hyun had named White Rice Cake, jumped at his food and cleared almost all of the dishes. But Kang Hyun noticed that Rice Cake was cleverly avoiding all convenience store food and not even salads. He was avoiding steak as well. It made Kang Hyun think, and he realized that the steak he just cooked used good quality meat and was cooked through the same method. However, the sauces were different. One was a commercial sauce, while the other was his special sauce that was uploaded in an international cooking competition. Kang Hyun put both of the steaks in front of Rice Cake and said if he really knew his gourmet food, he must choose one between these two. Kang Hyun thought the commercial sauce was also delicious, but if Rice Cake chose his special sauce, he definitely had the talent to be an Epicurean. Rice Cake ate the commercial sauce steak first, but when he tasted the special recipe, he was excited about it and ate all of it while wagging his tail with happiness. Kang Hyun was surprised to see that he was an Epicurean for sure. Kang Hyun thought that he couldn't just give him any food from now on. Later on, when Kang Hyun was painting his new restaurant location, he thought that the color was a bit off. He couldn't understand what was wrong with this paint. Meanwhile, an old man came and said that it wasn't a surprise since he was painting outside with the paint meant to be used inside. Kang Hyun was confused and didn't know who this man was. The old man said that he was the man Kang Hyun should greet first when he moved in because he was the head of the village. Since Kang Hyun wasn't coming to him, he came here himself to see him. The old man observed closely the wall that Kang Hyun was painting and said that he had such poor painting skills. The old man told Kang Hyun that he should leave it the way it was, he would get him someone. But Kang Hyun thanked the old man and said that he could do it himself. However, the old man insisted that there were people who could do it in this village. He also said that Kang Hyun didn't know the value of money and suggested him not to put anything on his casual this weekend and he would get him someone. Later on, the head of the village brought a man to Kang Hyun for painting his wall. He introduced him as the son of the Young family who farmed at the field near here. Even though he looked like this, he was really good at painting and his name was Minho. Kang Hyun also introduced himself and thanked them for really coming. Kang Hyun brought something to drink for them, but was surprised to see that they had already started working. Kang Hyun wondered why they were working so hard for a house that wasn't even theirs. The old man asked Kang Hyun what kind of restaurant he was going to open here. Kang Hyun told him that he was planning on opening an Italian restaurant. Minho asked him if he would sell pork cutlets because his wife liked pork cutlets and the restaurant they always went to was closed. She was pregnant, so they couldn't go far. He tried to make it himself, but the taste was bad. Kang Hyun thought that even if it wasn't on the menu, pork cutlets were easy to make. But he thought giving customers food that he didn't know the taste of was nonsense. Perhaps he shouldn't open a restaurant. He looked at his little baby wolf and thought that he could do it. Suddenly, he got excited and said that he would make pork cutlets. At the moment, Kang Hyun is preparing pork cutlets. In Minho's opinion, the sauce had a more brownish color than red, and the sweetness of the sauce was due to tomatoes. Kang Hyun thinks it appeared as though they were using demi-glace, but the addition of tomatoes would end up making it bitter. In the beginning, Kang Hyun was curious about whether or not a store in the countryside would use tomato paste, but then he realized that it must be ketchup. Initially, he believed that the components were already prepared. He was so eager to make these cutlets that he asked Rice Cake to keep his energy levels up so that he could finish them first. After preparing all of the ingredients, Kang Hyun fried the cutlets in hot oil and served them with Rice Cake. Kang Hyun observed that his tail was more slowly wagging than it had been in the past. He speculated that the sweetness was too intense, so he attempted to make it again, but the results were still insufficient. Kang Hyun believed that after he lost his sense of taste, cooking had never been enjoyable for him because he was unable to taste his own dishes. However, from this point forward, he was able to determine how the food tasted, and he found that cooking was enjoyable for him. Additionally, Minho and his wife arrived at the restaurant at a later time. Minho inquired about the degree to which his wife's morning sickness had improved. In her response, his wife stated that everything was fine at this point and mentioned that she had heard that a new restaurant had opened up in the town, and that she was looking forward to eating there because it had been quite some time since she had pork cutlets. Afterwards, Kang Hyun stated that he needed to sate her excitement, so he served her a plate of freshly prepared cutlets that were served hot. The woman was astonished and remarked that it was a delectable mouthful. Moreover, Kang Hyun inquired about the taste of the food as she took her first bite. She mentioned that the restaurant in the countryside was also good, but she thought that this one was significantly better. While the sauce had the same flavor, the meat had a more crispy and juicy texture. This was the first time she had ever tried pork cutlet in this form. When she asked Minho if he remembered their first date, she mentioned that they had pork cutlets on that day as well. She also mentioned that after that occurrence, she began eating pork cutlets more frequently. The reason she didn't really like them before that was probably because she was more interested in the memory of eating pork cutlets with her husband than she was in the cutlets themselves. Rice Cake was lying flat on his back with his stomach bloated from all of the cutlets that he had fed him. Kang Hyun was pleased with her response, but then he turned his attention to Rice Cake. According to Kang Hyun, he fed him a little bit more than he should have. Kang Hyun sat down and contemplated the possibility of serving a customer before the grand opening had caused him to reevaluate his menu. This occurred after the customers had left the establishment. He was considering the possibility of creating a menu that would revolve around the desires of the customers rather than an Italian menu. It is possible to find restaurants similar to this one. However, all of them require reservations and are quite pricey. After that, he turned his attention to rice cake and pondered the fact that he needed to take action regarding him. As Kang Hyun pondered whether or not he was experiencing some form of dog depression, he pondered whether or not he ought to take him out for a walk on a daily basis. Given how quickly everything had transpired, Kang Hyun inquired of Rice Cake whether he had missed the forest from which he had originated. Kang Hyun was contemplating whether or not he ought to have returned the otherworldly animal to its home, but he was concerned that his home would become vacant. Kang Hyun tells Rice Cake that he will take him back to his home. That forest causes Kang Hyun to experience a panic attack, and he begins to question whether or not he needs to return there. It gives him chills just to think about it sometimes. In spite of the fact that he has stated that he will never return to that location, he finds himself in the woods with a small white rice cake. Kang Hyun is pondering the various decisions he has made in his life and is perplexed as to why he is currently present. Kang Hyun can't help but wonder if this location is a different dimension, just like it is in the comics, as they continue to explore the forest. When they look around, they find a stunning lake that is surrounded by mountains. Kang Hyun is astonished to see this, and he believes that he would experience the same feelings of homesickness if his location was similar to this. Before Kang Hyun departs, he approaches Rice Cake and sits down on the shore of the lake. He then informs Rice Cake that he has a present for him. Subsequently, he pulls a small grill out of his backpack and declares that Rice Cake has been of great assistance to him in the preparation of the pork cutlets, and that he will reward him with some expensive meat. He removes 3 large pieces of Wagyu steaks, seasoning them with salt and pepper before grilling them and serving them to Rice Cake. He then serves the steaks to Rice Cake. The statement made by Kang Hyun is that he is willing to wager that Rice Cake will soon be able to begin flying with that. Rice Cake devours the premium meat with a gleeful expression. After Kang Hyun comes to the realization that he has neglected something, he goes and gets a can of beer. Unfortunately, he is unable to taste anything, despite the fact that he claims that it is impossible to leave out alcohol when you have such an incredible view and meat. While Kang Hyun is taking in the scenery, he is suddenly confronted by a person who places a sharp blade on his neck. Kang Hyun is unable to move from his seat. Since those are artifacts that the watchman has never seen before, he claims that he does not appear to be from a nearby village because he has never seen them before. Inquiring as to whether he is a visitor or a scout from the outside, the man asks him. He inquires about Kang Hyun's identity. Kang Hyun is too scared to answer and thinks, "Who would have thought I would have to experience a sword being held to my throat?" He quietly says that he is a chef. He tries to justify himself and says he is not a suspicious person at all, but the man with the sword asks what a chef is doing here. Kang Hyun tells him that he was just admiring the view. The man shouts at him and asks if he is admiring the view in a forest where the morning beast appears. The man puts his sword at Kang Hyun's carotid artery. He could literally die if he moves an inch. The man tells Kang Hyun that if he does not tell him what he came here to do, then anything can happen. The man notices the little wolf eating meat. However, Kang Hyun is thinking about how to get out of this situation. He says that he can give him as much money as he wants, but then thinks if they do use a different currency here. But still, if he lets him live, he will exchange the money somehow. The man apologizes and says that since this is not a place where ordinary people can enter, he was being overly sensitive and puts his sword back. The man introduces himself as Randolph, a knight from the territory below. He asks Kang Hyun for his name. Kang Hyun introduces himself, but he is wondering why Randolph suddenly changed his attitude. Randolph tells him that the fact he is accompanied by a white wolf that only appears in folk tales means he is not a bad person. The White Wolves are a race that has inherited the blood of the old god. They are said to be the descendants of the wolf god. It is said that the primordial wolf god possesses eyes that can distinguish between good and evil and great wisdom. The White Wolf's race is said to have inherited some of his abilities, and such a white wolf is accompanying him. Kang Hyun is surprised to know that and thinks that it explains all of Rice Cake's actions. And all of that was because he is a descendant of God. He also remembers how he was not going close to the head of the village. Randolph asks him if he was having a meal while looking at the lake and says the food he eats in a place like this is bound to feel more special. He asks what kind of meat this is. Kang Hyun tells him that it is beef and offers him some. Randolph says even though he should say that he has already eaten, but the truth is he has not eaten anything yet. He thinks that he was only going to investigate, but he cannot resist a smell like this even if he had eaten. Randolph says that he will take only one bite. As soon as he puts meat in his mouth, he cannot believe its taste and thinks, how can it be this juicy? The meat is so tender that it melts in his mouth. There is no way he can find meat of this quality easily. Randolph notices the can in Kang Hyun's hand and asks what it is. Kang Hyun tells him that it is alcohol. Randolph is mesmerized by it and asks Kang Hyun if it came from the area where he lives. Kang Hyun offers him some, but Randolph says that he only asked because he was curious, but there is no need to refuse it since Kang Hyun has placed it into his hands like this. Randolph realizes the taste and says it is beer, but he never thought that beer could taste this clean. Kang Hyun thinks that Randolph's attitude is completely different from when he put a blade to his neck. Now he just looks like a foreigner who lives in the neighborhood. Randolph says now that Kang Hyun has treated him to such great things, he cannot simply let him go empty-handed like this. He tells Kang Hyun if he ever comes to the town, he should just say that he is looking for the Robentus Knight Captain Randolph. Kang Hyun is surprised and confused after hearing this. However, Randolph thinks he is not even surprised after hearing his position. He is definitely not an ordinary person. He advises Kang Hyun to be careful because you never know what might appear in this forest, but since he is with a white wolf, he will be fine and gives himself as he is on patrol. Kang Hyun is shocked and thinks if it is okay to drink alcohol while working in this world. However, as Randolph leaves, Kang Hyun gives all of the meat to Rice Cake as it is the last serving. Kang Hyun remembers all of his memories with Rice Cake and thinks that now he had to leave it behind. It feels a little sad. Although it was a short time, he enjoyed it and thanks to it, he was able to make good cutlets. As he was about to leave, he says goodbye to the little puppy. He turns back to see if Rice Cake is going to bid farewell to him, but he is busy eating. Kang Hyun is a little disappointed and says even though it was a little time, he thought it would have been a little more attached to him. He notices that Rice Cake is not there and he is clinging to his bag. He wonders why he is doing this right now. This is his hometown that he wanted to come back to. Why is he trying to follow him? He asks little Rice Cake if he preferred being with him. The baby wolf gets all excited and Kang Hyun thinks that he has no choice but to bring him along, so he takes this cute little thing back with him. As he comes back to the village, he realizes that it means he has to keep going back to the other world periodically. Kang Hyun notices that so many people are gathered in front of his house. The head of the village notices Kang Hyun and says he is finally here. Kang Hyun asks what everyone is doing here. The chief tells him that they are having a feast and asks Kang Hyun if he has not heard about it. Kang Hyun says not at all, but even if he had heard about it, he would not come anyway. Minho brings a banner that says, "Congratulations on joining the village, Seoul's Lee Kang Hyun." The chief insists Kang Hyun stay because it is a party to welcome him. All the villagers are thoroughly enjoying the feast. Some of them are admiring Kang Hyun, which he finds a bit annoying. However, the painter and his wife manage to divert the attention away from him, providing him with some relief. Kang Hyun asks them if it's a common practice to celebrate like this whenever a new person arrives in the town. They explain to him that it's a small town and they try to stay connected with each other. They assure him that it's not just about the love for drinking, but more about the sense of community. The village chief approaches Kang Hyun and suggests that it's a good opportunity for him to let people know who he is. He even mentions that Kang Hyun can promote his restaurant here. This surprises Kang Hyun, and he wonders if the chief is trying to help him with his restaurant. After giving it some thought, Kang Hyun agrees that it would be a good idea to advertise his restaurant. Meanwhile, the painter's wife is busy serving food to the villagers. While the other villagers are engrossed in their conversations, Kang Hyun finds himself sitting alone, sipping his drink. He thinks to himself that it's not as bad as he had imagined. Suddenly, he realizes that rice cake is missing. He soon finds out that rice cake has been sneaking meat from the dishes of the villagers. He has eaten almost all of the steaks, leaving only the frozen meats behind. He seems to have a preference for the expensive ones. The painter asks Kang Hyun if rice cake is his dog. Kang Hyun, trying to hide his embarrassment, denies knowing rice cake and thinks to himself that he should have left him back there, all the emotional memories disappearing. Kang Hyun notices a young boy sitting alone. He wonders if the boy Sung-hoo is sitting alone because he doesn't have any friends here. Soon after, Sung-hoo's grandmother brings something for him, but he throws it away and runs off. She explains to the village chief that Sung-hoo has been upset since he came back from school yesterday. His friend was bragging about eating a hamburger, and Sung-hoo has been throwing a tantrum about it since then. So she bought him a packaged hamburger, but it's not the same. One of the villagers suggests that if Sung-hoo wins from the store, he can buy a hamburger on his way back home tomorrow. But the chief clarifies that they don't sell hamburgers here. They sell them at MCDs. The village chief reassures Sung-hoo's grandmother that even if they don't sell hamburgers here, they can make them because they have a chef from Seoul, referring to Kang Hyun. The chief apologizes to Kang Hyun for the sudden request and explains that he is all they have got. He adds that the hamburger doesn't have to taste the same as the one from MCDs. He speculates that Sung-hoo probably doesn't want a hamburger. He is probably just jealous because his friend's family went out together. He reveals that Sung-hoo's mother is sick and lives in a hospital, and his father is outside the country because of his job, so the poor kid is just lonely. The chief also mentions that Sung-hoo is the only kid in their town, so they have to take care of him. Kang Hyun reflects on this and realizes that he didn't understand the situation fully before. He appreciates that the chief knows everyone's situation and thinks that he might be a good person. Kang Hyun tells them that he can easily make hamburgers even though he has never been to MCDs. He reveals that he is actually an exchange student from the birthplace of hamburgers, the United States of America. As rice cake has eaten all of the steaks, the villagers had to eat only the side dishes, so making hamburgers is the least Kang Hyun can do for them. Kang Hyun makes a hamburger and gives it to rice cake for testing. He had made it by looking at a picture, but as rice cake eats it, his tail is not wagging as fast as usual. Kang Hyun recalls that he ate a lot of hamburgers while studying in the USA. He went to America with a love for cooking, which he now thinks was a bit naive. But he has never been that passionate about anything else. He loves cooking. Kang Hyun wonders what his past self would think if he could see him now. However, he asks rice cake if he can eat more. This little thing is already excited again, with a seemingly bottomless stomach. Kang Hyun ties his apron and gets ready to cook another hamburger. Kang Hyun, the boy from Seoul, works his magic in the kitchen and creates a phenomenal hamburger. Sung-hoo, his grandmother, the painter, and his wife all wait eagerly at the restaurant. The painter mentions that it's been a while since he had a hamburger, but he notices that Kang Hyun doesn't look very happy. He asks Kang Hyun if he's not excited about finally getting to eat a hamburger. Sung-hoo is about to reply, but before he can, Kang Hyun serves the hamburger in front of him. The hamburger looks like a piece of art, and Sung-hoo is mesmerized by it. He takes his first bite and feels like there are fireworks at Times Square in his mouth. He thinks that it's 100 times better than the convenience store one. Sung-hoo gets excited and tells his grandmother that it's good. His grandmother is glad that he's happy. However, Kang Hyun suddenly gets sad and says he actually just wanted to see his mom. He thought he could go to Seoul where his mom is if he asked for a burger. That's why he said he wanted to try a burger. Sung-hoo's grandmother feels sorry for being rude. She hugs him and apologizes, saying she didn't even realize that. She pities him because he's so young, yet he has to live without his parents. Kang Hyun tells them that he will soon be going to Seoul. He asks Sung-hoo if he wants to come along with him, and maybe they can also stop by the place he wanted to go, because he has never had a burger from there either. Sung-hoo gets excited and says he wants to go. Sung-hoo and his grandmother thank Kang-hyun for this favor. Later on, Kang-hyun is looking in his refrigerator. There are so many leftover ingredients. He thinks if they should go camping with these. He has never actually gone camping before, and he won't have time to go once the restaurant opens. As he looks at rice cake, he notices that he's looking at him with anticipation. Kang-hyun asks him why he's looking at him like he said that he's going to the other world. He clarifies that he said he's going for camping, not to the other world. But somehow, they end up sitting in the middle of the enchanting forest of the other world. Kang-hyun realizes that he has been here more times than he has been to the grocery stores. He has bought all of the necessary equipment for camping and tries to set up a camp. After trying multiple times, he is finally done. Boy realized that setting up a tent is harder than he thought, and now he is hungry, so he makes some food. And the smell of the food he made did few animals from the forest. The boy give these little animals some raw meat which they quite like. The boy was worried that it was going to be boring, but doing nothing like this can also be satisfying. The boy think that this is what they call healing. He suddenly think where did rice cake gone? But then he realize he will come back when he is hungry. The boy is sitting in his chair with a ball of delicious stew in his hand. He realized something is in the bushes behind him. He think that it is rice cake and ask him to get out as he has got plenty of it for him. But suddenly a hand came out of the bushes and tried to snatch the ball. The ball responded quickly and dots the attack. He can clearly see that it is not rice cake, but a very hungry girl with cat ears. Kang-hyun found himself in a state of confusion, questioning whether the creature before him was a girl or a cat. He wondered if she was a hybrid, half human and half beast, like the characters he had seen in movies. However, this cat girl seemed angry, growling continuously and launching attacks on Kang-hyun in an attempt to snatch the food from his hands. Kang-hyun, preferring to resolve the situation peacefully, asked the girl if she was hungry. He offered her some food, hoping she would retreat. The girl sniffed at the stew and attempted to eat it. However, as she took her first bite, her mouth started burning from the spices. Kang-hyun realized that the kimchi stew was actually quite spicy. Despite the initial shock, the girl seemed to appreciate the complex flavors of the stew and attempted to eat it again. Kang-hyun thought that it must suit her taste. Just then, rice cake arrived. Kang-hyun felt a twinge of disappointment, remarking that rice cake had returned just in time for his meal and could have come a bit earlier. Kang-hyun told rice cake that he would heat up the kimchi stew for him. However, the little pup was not very patient and attacked the cat girl who was eating his food. Kang-hyun tried to calm him down, assuring him that his food was right there. The cat girl also got angry and tried to attack rice cake. As Kang-hyun was struggling to calm them down, another cat hybrid emerged from the forest. He was a handsome, muscular man with cat ears. He apologized to Kang-hyun, picked up the cat girl, and took her back into the forest. Kang-hyun was surprised at how many different races lived in this area. Later, Kang-hyun was cleaning his restaurant a day before its grand opening. He thought that even though he had come here to relax, he might have played around too much. Now that he had decided to open a business, he felt he should prepare thoroughly. The remodeling had been completed, the ingredients were prepared, and the cleaning would soon be done. Kang-hyun thought that his preparations were perfect, and he was ready to have the most flawless opening the next day. Just then, an old woman entered the restaurant and asked if they were open. Kang-hyun told her that they would be open the next day, but invited her to have a seat. The lady observed the restaurant and commented that the place was still the same. Kang-hyun asked her if she had been there when it used to be a tea house. The woman did not reply, but instead asked him what he would be selling. Kang-hyun explained that they would be selling comfort food, things like pasta and pizza. The lady asked Kang-hyun if by pasta he meant those American noodles. She ordered that and left the rest to Kang-hyun. Kang-hyun went into the kitchen and started preparing the pasta. He thought that this might be her first time eating pasta, so he decided to make tomato pasta because it was the most common and she would be able to eat it. He prepared an incredible-looking plate of spaghetti and thought that since she was his shop's first customer, he must give her the perfect treatment. Kang Hyun served the plate of tomato pasta on the table, explaining to the old woman that it was a dish he had not tasted himself. However, he was hopeful about its taste because he had received many compliments on this particular pasta. He was confident that it would taste good. The old woman took only one bite of the pasta, her expression not very pleasant, and asked Kang Hyun how much it cost. Kang Hyun was taken aback by her reaction and stood there confused. Meanwhile, the chief of the village arrived at the restaurant. He commented that they had put up a nice banner this time, one that was very eye-catching. He was confident that the business would do well. Seeing Grandma Park exiting the restaurant, he asked her what she was doing there. She replied matter-of-factly that she had come to the restaurant to eat, of course. The chief thought that she was very cold in her demeanor. However, Kang Hyun was still standing beside the table, his gaze fixed on the plate of pasta. The chief was surprised and asked if she had actually eaten, but then why had she left so much food untouched? Kang Hyun, on the other hand, was on the verge of tears, wondering what the problem could be.